Everyone relaxed? Ready for class? It's not class, it's satsang. We were talking yesterday about how class is such a school, Western education system kind of way of thinking of things. For us, speaking about Krishna is it's like our lifeblood. Hearing about Krishna is our lifeblood. It's not a class we listen to learn from. It's a practice by which we come closer to the closest thing to us that we have ignored for a long time, which is Krishna, the indwelling Paramatma, the Supersoul. So this is not a class for us to perhaps, it's there for us to learn from. But sometimes we become so attached to the learning aspect that we think spiritual life is about collecting information. And spiritual life is more than collecting information. So we'll try to open our minds to what Krishna is trying to tell us. And through an open mind, we can try to embrace those teachings in our heart. And the essence of all those teachings is to know God, is to know the self. That's why Prabhupada is speaking here about self-realization is actually realization of your relationship with God. That is self-realization. Take a note. It's important. We have to learn these things. It's true. We need information, we need language, because without that you cannot develop wisdom. So first comes knowledge, then comes wisdom. But once you achieve wisdom, then you need to go beyond wisdom into the realm of actual loving engagement, which is more than wisdom. So some people can bypass knowledge and wisdom and just be absorbed in love and service. For them, they've already achieved perfection. Krishna says, of those who approach me through the path of knowledge, they are very dear to me. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavam mam prapadyante vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabham. He said, it is very rare, and they are very great personalities. Sudurlabha. Those Mahatmas, very great souls, are those who have sought after God through many lifetimes, collecting knowledge, jnanavan, becoming knowledgeable and wise. But after all of that accumulation of knowledge, the end of all of that knowledge is to know God. Vasudeva sarvamiti, and to see that expansion of God everywhere, and to learn how to engage with it, how to serve, how to be present. So for us, this accumulation of knowledge is important, but more important is, I would say, to be present and to come to the platform of devotional practice, which means spiritual engagement. So Krishna is going to talk here. We're going to discuss today Buddhi Yoga. Jai Dandavats. What does it mean to be intelligent? We're going to discuss that. Swami Prabhupada describes it as devotion. He said real intelligence is to practice devotion, to love. So one thing I want to discuss also a little bit is the idea of the situation that we are in, and that it is actually, if we look at the Bhagavad Gita, what is the setting? We look at our lives and we think we have so many problems. We're struggling and we're full of anxiety about the future and lamentation about the past and stress about the present. But I think part of the reason why the setting of the Bhagavad Gita is this great war is to show us that perhaps in our lives it could be worse. Look at the situation Arjuna is in. It's not just a war against enemies attacking their land. It's a war against kin and his teachers and elders. Who is he faced with? He's faced with his own teachers. So we think, oh yes, we should rebel against our teachers. Yes, we don't need your education. Teachers. So this is what kind of teacher? We are not teaching to be revolutionaries. Bhagavad Gita is not about revolution outward. The setting is that situation. But what Prabhupada is instructing us, what our Gurudev, what Krishna is instructing us is that ultimately what we're going to hear in these verses coming up is that the battle is not outside. We've been talking about that a little bit. Yes, certainly there is a battle outside. In situations in life, it's all the battle of varying interest groups. That's called politics. Through war or through politics. Different kinds of warfare, different kinds of battle. Competing interests. But what Krishna is recommending to Arjuna is to transcend this whole reality of conflict by becoming, on one level, completely equipoised, so indifferent almost. We're going to hear verses about this. Arjuna asks about what is the nature of someone who is free of attachments. What is the nature of an equal-minded sage? And Krishna describes that. The point is that we're all looking outside, and we think that if we change the outer situation, then our life will be good. If we change situations externally, then internally we'll be peaceful and happy. To some degree, perhaps, but ultimate peace will not be gained by that. Inner peace isn't external peace. Sometimes external war can lead you to inner peace. And outward peace will just perpetuate the inner conflict because it's sedating you. Outwardly, everything is peaceful. So I am happy. I don't need any spiritual growth. So the external conflict sometimes can bring you to the precipice of true spiritual advancement, where you can fall off the platform of the ego and the mind and the self, which is trying to conquer over situations and others, and then you can fall upwards to the hands of Krishna, the hands of God. So that's one thing I wanted to mention, is that we don't have it that bad. Sometimes perspective helps. There have been people in history who have suffered beyond our present capacity to even comprehend. Those are the sorts of people who don't have the facility to watch this or to hear this. If you're being tortured, you're not watching this video on YouTube. So we may be tortured by our minds, we may think we're being tortured by others, but real torture is called torture. It's that sort of pain and suffering is a very horrible predicament that we are not in. So first is to acknowledge that life could be much worse. Yes? But we all live our personal life is, we all go through varieties of distress. And I think that's partly what Krishna is advising Arjuna here in this second chapter, to kind of go beyond that madness of the mind when it's agitated about circumstances beyond one's control. It's a form of madness. We become stuck in this loop that we're spinning through. Like a car that the tires are spinning and you're revving at 6,000 RPM, but it's not moving anywhere. It's elevated, but it's just, and we're like that and sometimes in life, and we're just thinking through this situation again. I want to do this, what to do this, what to that. And we're just full of this dilemma. So therefore Arjuna put down his bow and arrow and he said, I will not fight. He surrendered. before surrendering, he got to have his debate, he got to argue with Krishna, he got to give all his reasons. So this is also good in spiritual life. Don't think spiritual life is one-sided. It's okay to have your questions, to have your doubts. Doubt isn't a problem. It's a problem when you let it just fester. It's a problem when you don't acknowledge and seek higher counsel. But afterwards, Arjuna actually surrendered and began to hear Krishna's instructions. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. The other thing is that if we look here, something I've just been observing, and this is something I observe wherever I've traveled, and I've been talking about this. A lot of the source of conflict in life is perceived faults of others, especially in relation to ourselves. This person did this, and it's not proper and it's not fair. And we are always on this judging tendency. It's very hard to remove that. Right? In life, we go about life almost like subconsciously measuring ourselves up with others and judging and thinking who is right and wrong and what they're doing is right or wrong. So I want to talk about justice versus mercy and which department we want to approach. If you want to approach the department of justice, we all want to approach the department of justice for others, not for ourselves. We want justice for others and mercy for ourselves. Yes? So if you want justice, okay, where do you find it? This is something I wanted to talk about also. We want justice in life, right? We were wronged. Someone else was wronged. Wrong has been done. So where do you go to find justice? We want to prosecute others, but what is the court of justice in the universe? Yama Loka. Yam means the god of death. And his other name is Dharmaraj, the king of Dharma. And it's to say that whatever we do in life will have its karmic reaction, that is justice. So Krishna is saying, and the Sastra says, that ultimately, here in verse 37, he says, if you do righteous action, you'll enjoy in heaven. Those who are committing harm to others, they will suffer. They will go to the abode of Yam, death, and they will be given their reward. But why do we want to be his secretary of the god of death? Then we also have to reside in that abode. So we want to prosecute others for the perceived notion of what is right and wrong in this world. Is this person right or wrong? Is that person right or wrong? Gurudev would say, you are not masters to chastise. Gurudev would say like that. What is right and what is wrong? You may be right that someone else is wrong, but are you their judge? Yam, karma itself, is the judge. We don't want to get caught up in that, because then we will have to always be in that mode of consciousness where we are, oh, you are a very good judge. Yama Maharaj would say, you are very good at judging others. Will you come and help me in the abode of death? And everyone can come here, and you'll be very occupied in this form of justice. Don't think there's a lack of judging to be done. There's an infinite supply of judgments to be given out. The question is, do you want to be that person or not? Yamaraj has assistants, and they're always taking notes of everyone's behavior. Always. They have their notebook. It's a big notebook, not like we buy at Hallmark. Big notebook, a tome for each of us. And they're writing down every activity and what it was good or bad. And they always need help. Chitragupta is the assistant of Yamaraj. Chitragupta. And he's always looking for people to help him. He has a big department like the NSA. There's a big department of people taking note of whether you're good or bad, whether you're naughty or nice. So that's something I've been thinking about also today, is we are looking for justice upon others. Part of Arjuna's dilemma is that he doesn't want to be the arm of justice. But he's in that role, and that was his dharma according to this body. And also, it was just his role. He's one of the younger brothers, and it was beneficial, but we are not Arjuna in this situation. And anyhow, he gave up that judgmental mentality, and he said, I don't really know what I should do. This is also a form of spiritual knowledge. To have the courage to say, I don't know. To have the honor to say, I don't know. It's a form of honor. I don't know what you're going through. Sometimes someone does something wrong. Our first reaction shouldn't be that you are wrong. Our first reaction should be, are you okay? How can I help? If we react with love, then Gurudev would say something. He would say, he told the story of I'm sorry, I just kind of give like my spiritual psychology, and then I'll do verses also. I said this is meditations on life and the Bhagavad Gita. These series of classes I'll be giving, it's meditations on spiritual life and learning and hearing from the wisdom of Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. But this is also observations from traveling and from teaching and from mostly hearing from others, the sufferings they're going through. So Gurudev told a story of a lion. And once there was a person going through the forest, and he saw this lion in great anguish. Great anguish. And he came closer, and he was very surprised because the lion was alone, no one was there helping, and it wasn't in this aggressive mood of attacking and killing people. And he saw on its paw there was some infection and some deeply embedded thorn. And he was a healer, so this person sat down, and he didn't just go to surgery. You know, there's one great teacher said that, this might be Ramakrishna. He said, snakes know your heart. If you're a sage, they won't bite. If your frequency in your heart is if you're so full of peace and love and joy, you look at Prahlad Maharaj, his father threw him in a pit of venomous snakes and they wouldn't disturb him. He was so at peace, he was so joyful, and so full of love for all of reality that they did not harm him. So this healer, with great honor and respect, he removed this thorn and gave some herbal tincture, some compress, and the lion became healed. And he offered pranam and went on his way. Some years later, he was falsely accused for theft in a kingdom, and he was going to be put to death. And the system was that they would throw you into a pit with a lion. So he was thrown into the pit with the lion, and they opened the gate. You imagine you're in this arena. Imagine yourself, right? You're in the arena, and you're waiting for death to come in the form of this lion. The healer was simply sitting there at peace, and they opened the gate, and the lion came out. Very aggressive at first. Why? Because they captured this lion, gave him the job of killing people, and they're always tormenting, and they're not treating him with love. They keep him in a prison, so he's very aggressive. The lion came running out, but once he started getting 20 yards away, he actually started running faster, but with a different attitude. And he came up to the person, and everyone in the crowd was going, yeah, finish him. The lion jumped and embraced this person. Like Shesha with Bali. Oh, my Prabhu. right? With so much love and tenderness. And tears formed in the eye of this wild beast. Because he recognized this person who had helped him when he was at his lowest. Right? What could have the lion was in a vulnerable position, suffering. He could have brought a spear and killed the lion. He could have been a judge and said, you've done wrong, therefore this has happened to you. He wasn't a judge, he wasn't an executioner. He just tried to help. And he was agnostic. What does it mean to be agnostic? He wasn't so attached to the right or wrong of this lion having that suffering. Rather, he just thought, let me try to help. Let me try to help relieve suffering. Let me try to help relieve the burden of suffering. And look what reaction he got. There's another story of a sadhu. He was walking along from village to village, and as he was approaching a village, there had been some rain, and there was a small pond, like a pool, in the pathway. And there was a scorpion drowning in it. And the sadhu picked up the scorpion and was trying to, it was a large pool, perhaps 8 feet or so. The scorpion bit him, and because it was very painful, he dropped the scorpion. And again it fell in the pool and was drowning. And again he picked up the scorpion and was lifting it across, and again it bit him. And again he lifted up the scorpion, and again it bit him. And again he lifted up the scorpion, and again he bit him. And villagers were coming past that direction and said, why are you continuously trying to save this entity that is continuously trying to harm you? And he said, if the scorpion does not give up its nature, I am supposed to be more advanced. I'm a human being. The scorpion is not giving up its nature. Why should I give up my nature? My nature is to try to help. So I'm telling you, one very interesting thing is, if you want to correct someone, first you should show that you care about them. If your initial reaction is judgment, you're putting them in the department of an aggressor. We say, you are not guilty until proven, but we are starting out that they are guilty. If we ask, we may understand. And it may be so. They may be guilty. We also may be guilty. Many things. They say people don't care what you know unless they know that you care. It's a very kind of like, it sounds simple, but it's sometimes the most profound things are the simplest. People don't know. People don't care what you know unless they know that you care. So this is something I've been thinking about. Most of our problems, like I've said, I think it was yesterday or the day before, samsara is a crowdsourced problem-generating machine. We're all crowdsourcing each other's problems. And how do we get out of that cycle? We were reading today a quote from Srila Gurudev from New Braj 2000. Should we read a little bit of this? Let's read it. It's a beautiful quote. It's an interesting meditation, you know. This is not for this is in general. Because a lot of people think spiritual life means, you know, convincing others they're wrong and convincing others we're right and they should follow our path and this is the right path. And a lot of that is based on right and wrong based on what? We don't want to be assistants to Yamaraj, taking notes of everyone's rights and wrongs and being judge and jury. We are not interested in that department. Because if we are in that department, we think that we will wield the arm of justice. There's 2 arms of justice. We may wield one arm. The other arm will be wielded against us. So Gurudev says here, this is June 8th, 2000. First he says, then there will be no problem. No problem at all. You should sing kirtan and know the meaning and weep. This is his recommendation. When Gurudev would have kirtaniyas and new brides, he would ask them, you're preparing for a year to sing me one song. You should know that song you're going to sing me. And singing it, you should weep. Reading with tears, with a melting heart, then there will be no problem at all. Now you have so many problems. They have so many problems. Everyone, all have so many problems. So Gurudev is showing the different levels. You have so many problems. They have so many problems. Everyone has so many problems. Why? Because samsara is a crowdsourced problem-generating machine. However, all have so many problems. This world is full of problems. No, not full of problems. Gurudev said this world is not full of problems. It is made of problems. Top to bottom, here and there, only problems. And people think spiritual life means your guru should solve your material problems. They do, but with a spiritual solution. I think this is an Einstein quote or one of those great physicists and philosophers. They said, you cannot solve a problem with a solution of its own level. You have to have a higher order for an effective solution. So a material problem has a spiritual solution. So we do solve the problems, but not by simply saying, okay, there was too much salt in the khichdi, and let's try to remove some of that salt. How are you going to remove it? It's already in it. Better cook a better khichdi. You cannot remove the salt once it's in the prep. It's permeating it. You can water it down with spiritual life. So, this is more difficult. Krishna, the samsara is being created out of problems. Maya will punish you so much. Why? 3 kinds of suffering. Adhyatmik, adhibodhik, adhidevika. Problems that I cause myself, my own mind and senses, that I'm causing myself problems. Adhibodhika, which means problems caused by others. Adhidevika, and then that creates problems caused by the world around us. All these problems, like I was saying, the external conflict can lead to internal peace when we surrender the desire to control. And then this can help bring us to Krishna. Gurudev is saying like that. You should think, I have forgotten Krishna, and that is why all these problems are coming. They are coming to purify me. So we want to leave the department, the justice department, and enter the mercy department. Because if we are trying to be the advocates of the justice department, we will also be in the jury box, we will also be in the perpetrator box, we'll play all these roles. We're stuck in that paradigm. So we want to get out of that paradigm. Defendant, prosecution, jury, judge, we don't want any part of any of it. We practice spiritual life. So the Bhagavatam gives us a verse about this, which means basically this verse of Tatenu Kampam, which means we should understand that the suffering we are experiencing is caused by ourselves. So we should learn to forgive others, and we should learn to forgive ourselves. Don't blame others, don't blame yourself also. Why? Because then you're just stuck in this loop. This is all just ahankar, false ego, and all the external. It's not the reality of the Atma, the self. We can transcend all of that. So Gurudev says you should think that all these problems are coming because of what you have done in the past. But we don't have to be defined by the past. We don't have to be trapped in the past. Try to hear the glories of Krishna from high-class devotees. If problems come, what is the harm? It's a very interesting thing Gurudev says here. If the opulence of the whole world comes in my hand, what is the harm? Judas Maharaj was the king of the world. What is the harm? And if everything I have in the world is lost, what is the harm? So the reason I'm quoting this is because these verses we're going to come up in now, we're going to read, is based on this idea of being aloof from these material dualities of gain and loss, of victory, of defeat, of happiness and distress. How can we rise above that? If our attitude is that we want to love and serve God, then he says if we don't have any possessions, we can serve Krishna with our heart. Manasi Seva, serving with the mind, is higher than serving with the body. I've been talking about this. The best time to do bhakti is before you go to bed and when you first wake up, in bed. When you wake up in the morning, just say Hare, go to the feet of Srimati Radhika and say Krishna to please her, and then engage in loving service. In the heart, in the mind. Then get up and do your duties. And at night, before you go to bed, Hare, go to the feet of Srimati Radharani. How can I serve you? Say Krishna, this is pleasing to you. How can I do to serve, to seva? This seva saves ya. Okay? So if I have everything, what is the harm? I will use it for Krishna. If I have nothing, what is the harm? I will use my heart to serve Krishna. You should remember these things. Do not be hopeless. Do not be worried. Always be happy. This is Gurudev's instruction. There's a great saint. His name was Meher Baba. For 50 years, he didn't speak. And he would write on a chalkboard sometimes. Later, he used hand gestures. But this whole don't worry, be happy, this idea came from him. And later it was made into this hip song and Hakuna Matata, all this stuff. There's different sources. A lot of these ideas are, right, spontaneously in many different areas, so I'm not saying. But the idea is, they said, this is one of his sayings, don't worry, be happy. Again, it's one of those like, yeah, don't worry, be happy. Sometimes there are things to worry about. It's not just when it's great. When there's a rainbow out and you're eating ice cream and with your friends, don't worry, be happy is easy. When you're suffering, then you say, don't worry, be happy. So Gurudev is saying like that. Don't worry. Don't be hopeless. Always be happy. Gurudev's instruction, okay? Gurudev's giving the instruction to always be happy. We don't have to be part of that reality of suffering. That's the point. If we want to stay in that paradigm, we can stay in that paradigm forever. And we have been in that paradigm for a long time. Karma and justice and right and wrong. Some people, they want to be in this material existence forever just to solve all the ills of the world. You're never going to get to the end. So we can be happy. When Gurudev says, don't worry, be happy, he's saying, what is ananda? What is real happiness? And how can we go towards that platform of spiritual life? You're hearing these things, but you should follow and then be happy. The only thing you should worry about is that, I have not developed this pure love, prem. And then strive for that. If you hear this and follow, then you'll be happy. So now we'll read some verses of Krishna in the Gita. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What would be more painful for you? So this is now we're going to a segue here. Krishna is using a form of reasoning based on Arjuna's, there's attachment to status and there's perception of you. So Krishna talks this a little bit. He says, for such a hero like you, dishonor is worse than death. So if you give up the battle, people will always speak of you in infamy. For one who has been honored, dishonor is worse than death. Dishonor is worse than death. If you flee the battlefield, all the great warriors, all your peers, who have highly esteemed your name and fame, will think you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and they will consider you a coward. They will describe you in unkind words and scorn you. What could be more painful to you? Arjuna is on that level at this point. Are you attached? Krishna is testing him. Are you attached to what others think of you? Is that the reason to fight? Should you fight just because of attachment to the opinion of others? No. And then Krishna says, 37, O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up and fight with determination. So Krishna, ultimately, he is giving many different reasons why Arjuna should perform this activity. But it's also spiritual life is a test. Guru is always testing. What do you want? Do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness and distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by so doing you shall never incur sin. So this is actually the slogan of the Indian military. Sukha duke same kritva lab labha jaya jayo tato yudhaya yujasva naivang papam avashpyasi. This is the basis of dharmic struggle. In spiritual life, this is all basic principles. At a certain point in spiritual life, you may have to actually fight. You may have to fight for what is right and just. But first you should become capable. First you should become righteous. First you should become virtuous. First you should become connected to Krishna, connected to Guru. Then, we talked about this yesterday, peace isn't the answer. We want engagement beyond peace. We want activity beyond peace, but with a different mentality. Instead of trying to enjoy this world and instead of trying to use things for our enjoyment, we try to serve reality rather than reality serve us. And once you have that mentality, realization means you realize God and your nature and relationship with God. And then you learn how to act. So Gita is teaching us action, not just passivity. That's the basic idea. All Krishna is telling him, anyhow, action is better than inaction. Is it? Our Gurudev would say, a lazy fool is better than a busy fool. So sometimes being a lazy fool is better than being a busy fool. So that's why Krishna is giving him wisdom, and then he can be busy intelligent. That's the basic idea here. Action. But what is action in the mode of goodness? We're not even interested in that. Krishna here is teaching action from the platform of true transcendental life, nirgun, beyond the dualities of all these other considerations. So now for a whole section, he's going to be talking about this idea of what does it mean to be detached while also acting. This is very difficult. A lot of people become detached, then they don't want to act. They want to be lazy fools. But Krishna is teaching us how to be engaged with buddhi yoga. That means proper intelligence. Eshate bihita shankye. Up to this point, I've taught you Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya Yoga means philosophy which describes the real nature of the self, of the elements of the universe or reality, and how to understand these things. It's describing phenomena. That's Sankhya Yoga. But now he's teaching us Buddhi Yoga, which Prabhupada describes as bhakti. Real intelligence is devotion and then activity. Devotional service is real intelligence. That means with devotion, acting in service. That is real intelligence. So I will teach you this now. By doing this, you can work without karma. We were talking about this yesterday, right? We talked about this a little bit, right? How when you become a Vaishnav, you're no longer producing or suffering the results of karma. The previous karma is easily extinguished. It's described, previous karma is like a mountain of cotton. With one holy name, a fire is lit that burns that down very quickly. One name of Krishna burns our mountain of past karma. And yet we are constantly producing karma. So therefore he's saying, if you can act with this higher intelligence, this yoga, buddhi yoga, karma bandham prahasyasi, you become free of the bondage of karma. So here in 239, Bhagavad Gita teaches 5 subject matters: Ishvar, Jeev, God, the soul, Kal, time, karma, action and reaction, and Ishvara, Jeev, Kal, karma, maya. Illusion, material world. Of these things, we can transcend karma. The principle of karma remains, principle of maya remains. We no longer want to be in that cycle of karma or that cycle of maya. We're giving up that mentality of being the judge For ourselves or for others, we're surrendering. And then by practicing this process, this knowledge of yoga, whereby one works without fruitive result. It's called Niskam Karma Yoga. Activity without material desire. It's very difficult. That's why people become devotees and then you kind of lose your sense of what to do. A lot of times you become a brahmachari and you think, oh no, I'm acting without desire. I don't know what to do. Because most action in this world is based on desire. So to act without desire is actually a very high level of spiritual life. To act without any desire for our own gain, what does that mean even? Our Gurudev would say even beyond that is true selfishness, which means to act for our highest transcendental gain, which is to understand our relationship with Krishna. Neha vikramo nasasti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. It's a very beautiful verse, reassuring verse. In this endeavor, there is no loss. The smallest advancement on this path protects one from the most dangerous kind of fear. Swalpam apyasya dharmasya, here refers to dharma. This activity, Dharma is not just a universal principle or a nature. Dharma means how do you act? What is the proper behavior or activity? That is Dharma. So if you perform a little bit of bhakti yoga, this frees you from the greatest danger, the greatest fear. Our Gurudev would talk about fear. There's a very beautiful verse. Gurudev wrote a book on it. Bhayam dvitiya viniveshitasya dishadapitasya viparya yosmriti tanmayata buddhiravajetam bhaktiyaika yesham gurudeva tatma buddhi. Krishna is talking about buddhi yoga now. It means yoga of proper intelligence. And here in this verse it said buddhi. When real intelligence comes, then one learns to recognize the presence of the Absolute, Bhagavan, and they learn to develop relationship with Guru and Krishna. Gurudeva Tatma, they become one at heart. They become a vessel. Rather than, like we talk in spiritual life, we want to become like the flute, where we can become a vessel for the desire and the will of our gurus, of God Himself, which is for our benefit and for others' benefit. Instead of trying to act according to desire, Krishna is saying here, if you can learn to act without material desire, but rather my desire is to please Krishna, then you have a reason to act. So we don't get lost in inactivity. I want to please Krishna. I want to please the lineage of our gurus. The first thing they're going to tell you is, if you want to please me, you should be liberated. That's why it's selfish. And it's good. Gurudev would say good. Selfishness is better than selflessness. Because sometimes we get so caught up in helping everyone, it's a form of aggrandizement of our ego. I want to help and save everyone. I want to be so important. I want to be a great savior. And I'll be loved as a great helper and savior. When you surrender to Krishna and you say, oh Krishna, I want to please you, I want to serve your desire, you'll say, good, come to me. What do you mean? I'm here to help everyone in the world. No, don't worry about that. Come back to Godhead. Don't worry. You can come back again once you're liberated and help. It's okay. If you help and save everyone in this world right now, there'll be still next generation more people who need help. So you're going to stay in this world forever just helping? Or are you going to go back to Godhead? What do you prefer? Champaka is going to become Bodhisattva. She's going to take millions of births to save every soul in the material existence. Yeah?
Well, you can't save anyone if you're not liberated yourself.
You can help bring them to someone, and you can help instruct them and guide them. My point here is that don't think like service to Krishna is without your self-gain. That's the point. If you really say, Krishna, I surrender to you, please help me, then what does Krishna say? Manmana bhavad bhakto. He guides Arjuna how to be happy and be with him. That is what Gurudev is saying here. I want you to solve these problems. I want you to not be worried. I want you to be happy. But I'm telling you how to do it. If you're not willing to accept that method, then what can I do? He said, now you should follow. And by following, then you can be happy. So Krishna is saying, this is just something to meditate on in spiritual life. When we try to please the will of Krishna, when we try to serve his desire, our gurus want us to become liberated. That means to become peaceful, and to become blissful, and to become situated on a transcendental platform. That's what they want for us. We get caught up in saving the world because it's a combination of the ego as well as an inability or a lack of desire to work on oneself. We should work on ourselves. Then we can help others. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. So Krishna is telling us, we'll come upon this many times. Be focused. Krishna says this many times in the Gita, be focused. If you want to achieve success, be focused on your aim and follow it. That's why Arjuna is an archer, the best archer, because he's the best student, because he's the most focused. There's an example in the Mahabharata. His teacher, Dronacharya, the military teacher, he had 105 or 6 pupils. He took them all, the sons of Dhritarashtra, Duryodhana and his 100 brothers, and the son of Pandu, the 5 brothers. And he gave them a test, and he said, I want you to shoot the eye of, they had a wooden bird high up in a tree. Shoot the eye of the bird. And he brought them up one by one, and everyone was failing miserably. Why? He asked them, what do they see? And they said, I see the tree, I see the sky, I see you, I see the bird, I see the eye of the bird. He said, fail. I see the tree, I see the branch, I see the bird, fail. And they tried to shoot, but fail. Arjuna, what do you see? I see the center of the eye of the bird. Shoot. Done. Focus. Arjuna is focused. Shoots the arrow, it hits the target. Therefore, he is a real disciple. So Krishna says, Ananyas chintayantu mam, those who are focused, one-pointed, they achieve their desire, or my desire. The previous verse here, 41, he says, Vyavasayatmaka buddhir, those who have buddhi, intelligence, are vyavasayatmaka, one-pointed. Spiritual life is such a serious situation that it takes great focus or concentration. Tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusha param. It said tivrena, by focus or by focused effort, intense effort, then you can achieve the result rapidly. Otherwise, you can perform bhakti for lifetimes, no problem, you'll ultimately gain the result. But we want focus. And focus doesn't necessarily mean doing 1,000 jumping jacks in spiritual terms. Focus means a focused aim and striving towards it. We all know the story of the hare and the tortoise, right? So we may not be a hare, that doesn't mean we have to feel bad about ourselves. We may be a tortoise, we may be like a frog. We may be an elephant. We should just be who we are. The point is, if we are focused and we walk in one direction, we'll get to where we're going. Gurudev would say in spiritual life, if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there? So we should know our aspiration. So now Krishna, that verse precedes a discussion on this kind of cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease in the material universe, where sometimes we go up to heavenly enjoyment, sometimes we suffer, and the Vedas teach us how to elevate ourselves. It's called karma kanda. So Krishna talks about that in 2 verses. Bhogeshwarya prashaktanam taya pahrita chetasam vyavasayatmaka buddhir samado na vidiyate. Those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, do not achieve the resolute determination of developing love for the Supreme. That buddhi yoga does not take place. Therefore, he recommends to Arjuna, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna Nirdvando Nitya Sattvasto Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. A large portion of the Vedas are focused on Traigunya Vishaya, 3 modes. Goodness, passion, ignorance. These are all forms of bondage. Rise above these modes, O Arjuna. Be transcendental to all of them. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain or even safety, and be established in the self. Niryoga Shema Atmavan. Nitya Sattvasto, ever remaining in Shuddha Sattva. So this is what he's talking about by being one-pointed. One-pointedness is another word for focus. So he said those who are focused, their intelligence is resolute, they will achieve their goal. You can have someone who's very busy doing everything, multitasking in spiritual life, covering all your bases. On Monday I worship Yahweh, on Tuesday I worship Hanuman, on Wednesday I worship Sunny Dave, not American, not Western Sunny. Not a sunny day. Sunny is Saturn. And he's a god in Hinduism, Sunny. All right. On Thursday, we're going to worship Durga. On Friday, we're worshiping Shiva. On Saturday, we're going to worship Krishna. And on Sunday, we're going to worship ourselves. All right. Is it? So the point here is that it's better to be like slower than faster, but focus on one thing. You're trying to focus on 10 things and you're working very hard. You're not going to get any benefit from any of them. So Krishna is saying this here in 46. Yavan artha udapane sarvata samplutodake tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanataha. All purposes that are served by a small pond can at once be served by the great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. And this is also discussing the idea of you don't need to worship a million gods when God is one. You worship Krishna, develop a relation with Krishna, and in that way, this example that Krishna is giving, you don't need to go to one well for this, another well to that, another to this. Go to the reservoir, you can get all your needs met. So Krishna is called the reservoir of pleasure, reservoir of beauty and bliss. We'll read one more verse. Karmanyavadikaraste mafaleshu kadachanama karmafala heturbur mate sangusta karmani. If you want to be free of the bondage of karma or the bondage of work, action and reaction, then you do your activity. Evadikaraste, that is your qualification. In the chapter 6, he says, you are not a sannyasi who does no work. That is not sannyas. Sannyas means renunciation of attachment to the fruits of your work for your own selfish interest. Rather, he's saying you should do your work. Before he's saying, I want to free you from karma. Karma bandhan prasya, be free of karma. So Arjuna would say, why are you telling me not to work? Why are you telling me not to fight? You're telling me to be free of karma, so I should retire, I should not do anything, be free of work. And Arjuna is confused. He's saying, Krishna, you're telling me be free of attachment, gain and victory and defeat. Why are you telling me to fight this war? I should just be a sage. I should be retired from all these things. He said, no. Karmanyavadikaraste. You must do your duty. It said, doing your duty is better than not. And it's better than doing someone else's. What is good for you in this life, you should determine that through guidance, through your self-examination, through counsel, however you can. You should figure out what is the proper action for you, for your benefit, for others, and do it. But ma phaleshu kadachana. If you want to be free of karma, you should do your activity and offer the results to Krishna. Ma karma phala heturbur ma te sangusta karmani. People think offering the results to Krishna, there's some loss for yourself. Actually, the only thing you lose is your problems. To come for full circle. I remember my mom, we had a song. She did an album and she had a group of people. So they had a beautiful song. Pack up your sorrows and give them all to me. Right? You will lose them. I know how to use them. Give them all to me. Someone thought we were talking about saris. I remember someone joined the community and said, pack up your saris and give them all to me. You will lose them. I know how. So actually this is about Krishna. Pack up all your sorrows and give them all to me. So, ma phaleshu, we think the fruits of karma are very blissful. the fruits of our work is very great. The fruits of our work is suffering when we're performing material action. So therefore give it to Krishna. He will purify it. Then everything becomes prasad. In the verse coming up, Krishna says, Prasade sarva dukanam hanirasyo prajayate prasanna chetaso yaso buddhir paryavatishtete. He said, by this process, everything becomes prasad. Everything becomes blissful. Everything becomes blissful. Because you're offering it to Krishna, then you're establishing your relationship. Oh Krishna, Patram Pushpam, here are my problems. And then you come higher and you say, here is a fruit. You're offering a fruit to Krishna. You're offering a mango to Krishna. You're offering tulsi leaf to Krishna. You're offering a flower to Krishna. You're offering your heart to Krishna. So we say in the highest level of Bhakti Yoga, we actually don't plead to Krishna to solve our problems. They just vanish like smoke. We are with Krishna and we offer our love and service and desire for relationship. Then you go to Goloka Vrindavan. That is the place beyond problems. He is inviting us there. You want to come? Kejabi bhai bhava sindhu par dhanya kali jugera che tanya avatar. Mahaprabhu is so merciful. He doesn't look at anyone's faults. Jada anda atula avari parahai. Whether one is lame, blind, crippled, a sinner, the most fallen, everyone is equally qualified to achieve this divine love. Parama Karuna Bahudvi Jan Nitai Gaura Chand. They are the supremely compassionate. Mahavadanyaya. Why? Because this time is such that we need mercy, not justice. We pray for mercy. So we should not pray for mercy for ourselves and justice for others. We should pray for mercy for all. And everyone can be engaged properly in their respective dharma. Yogasta kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. 48. Be steadfast in yoga, O Arjuna. Perform your duty and abandon all attachment to success or failure. Such evenness of mind is called yoga. O Dhananjaya, rid yourself of all fruitive activities by bhakti, devotion, and surrender fully to that consciousness. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad actions, even in this very life. Therefore, strive for yoga, O Arjuna, which is the art of all work. Yoga karmashu koshalam. Karma jam buddhi yukta hi phalam tyaktva manishina janma bhanda vinirmukta param gachantya namayam. The wise engaged in bhakti or buddhi yoga take refuge in Sri Krishna, the Lord, and free themselves from the cycle of birth and death by renouncing the fruits of action in the material world. In this way, they can attain that state beyond all miseries. When your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. This is one of my favorite verses. I love this verse. 52, chapter 2. Yada te moha kalilam buddhir vyati tarishyati tada gantasi nirvedyam shrutavyasa shrutasya cha. Wouldn't this be nice? When your intelligence has passed beyond the forest, the dark forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. This is referring to Maya Tattva. Not what is beyond hearing, beyond the senses, that is transcendental. But this is all referring here to this section of Karma Kanda and this section of worldly affairs, to be really established in Nirgun Tattva. Then we become Atmaramascha Muniyo. Then we become always relishing the bliss of the absolute truth. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpa Tirubhyasya Kripa Sindhuvevacha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Bhagavad Gita Ki Jaya.